Hello and welcome to Whining About Books, where I review a good book with a stiff drink in my hand. My name is Paige Love, and I am a lover of literature, a connoisseur of composition, a purveyor of prose, an evaluator of exposition, and someone who really truly loves to read. Tonight I will be reviewing Mr. Adam by Pat Frank. No more wasting time. Grab your book if you have it, and grab your drink because I know you got it, and let's whine about books. Our author of the evening is Pat Frank. He was born in 1904. He is the author of the classic post-apocalyptic novel Alas, Babylon, as well as the Cold War thriller Forbidden Area. Before becoming an author, Pat Frank worked as a journalist and also as a propagandist for the government. He is one of the first and most influential science fiction writers to deal with the consequences of atomic warfare. My drink of the evening is a Manhattan. And if you have read this book or plan to read it, you might be asking yourself, why not a highball? Since they throw back highballs like nobody's business in this book. The reason I did not choose a highball is because I had no ginger ale, but I had everything that I needed for a Manhattan, which is rye whiskey, although I used a blend, a campfire blend by High West that does have rye whiskey in it, sweet vermouth, aromatic bitters, and a cocktail cherry. Mine is a black cherry, which we typically use, my household typically uses for old fashions, but I decided that I will go with this one for my Manhattan. Let's taste and see how it fares. Smells good. And that's not bad. It kind of has almost like a caramel sweetness to it. I did not think that I would like this, but I actually do. It's quite nice. It has a sweet note. It has a nice tingly, that tingly like rye feeling to whiskey at the end of the drink. Yeah, I quite enjoy this, and I don't think I've made a drink on this channel that I have not liked yet. So if you have not tried a Manhattan, go ahead and do that. That's enough sipping for now, and I will get more into it. But let's get into this review. The book Mr. Adam was published in 1946 and is an eerie yet funny tale, or at least what I consider funny, told from the perspective of journalist Steve Smith. Now, Smith stumbles upon a breaking news story, or more accurately, a world breaking story, when he discovers that no babies have been scheduled to be born after June 22nd. After checking the hospitals in major cities across the US, he expanded his search to major hospitals around the world. And once his theory checked out, the news broke and the world stumbled into panic. It is then that he found out that men around the world have been rendered sterile due to a nuclear incident that wiped out the state of Mississippi. So be it that not a single person cared about the utter decimation of the state itself. But one day it is discovered that a man by the name of Homer Adam is revealed to be the only man on the face of the earth who can actually have children, given that during the time of the incident, he was a mile underground in a lead mine. From this point, our main character, Homer Adam, his story is being told through the eyes of Steve Smith, is thrust into a twisted sort of stardom and is desired by every woman and government around the world. Now, let's talk about this book. Mm. Now, of course, once again, if you do see me looking down, it is because I have my notes here. Like I said in my last video, I kind of wanted a more authentic and kind of better flow in my video. So instead of reading from my prompt, which is what I used to do, I will go from my notes and kind of get into it this way. Now, Mr. Adam, like I said, was written in 1946. Obviously, if you know your history, that comes after the Second World War. And after that Second World War, there was kind of this fear of the nuclear age, of nuclear weapons wiping out the earth. And Pat Frank's take on the way a nuclear weapon would wipe out the earth was so interesting to me. So the way I think of it, and sometimes most people think of it, is, you know, world leaders would be at odds with one another, send off their atomic bombs, boom, humanity is decimated and no longer. The way Pat Frank goes about it is, like I said, there was that nuclear incident, that explosion in Mississippi that completely wiped out the state. No one cared. And I have to be honest, if he were to be writing this today, I still think not many people would care about Mississippi. Sorry to anyone who lives in Mississippi that might be watching this video. Um, it is not my personal feelings. I'd be devastated if Mississippi were to be wiped out. I have never been there, but maybe one day. I love the show Hometown, and I would feel bad if that show had to go without because Mississippi is no longer there. Anyway, his take was the nuclear bomb goes off. It renders all males sterile, not able to have babies. And because of that, obviously, that means that humanity in the next few generations will be no longer. And that is devastating for everyone. The world scrambles to figure out what to do to kind of get this re-sterilization of men. Let me be clear, the women are unharmed in this. We still are able to reproduce. There is nothing wrong with women being able to have babies. It is strictly the men. That is until they find out that Homer Adam, who is the lone man who is able to have a baby, who is able to reproduce, because he was, during the time of the explosion, was down in a lead mine. He's like a geologist, archaeologist, like as a profession. And so he's down in this lead mine. Apparently, he was about a mile down, and the lead down in that mine protected him from the gamma rays that rendered all males sterile. So I thought that was like a very interesting take. I obviously I didn't think of it. Pat Frank did, and I loved it. I love that was the route he went, because instead of it being more of a devastating instant decimation of humanity, it would be humans having to slowly watch each other die off. And my thought with that was, what happens when it comes down to the last few people on earth? What does communication look like? What does living look like? What does survival look like? And all I could think that is, if it were me, it'd be or myself and my husband, we'd be on our little homestead with our dogs, living life as best we can, trying to enjoy those last moments on earth and those last years. And would you go crazy? Would you accept it and have kind of a peace of mind? I don't know. Maybe I would like to say I'd have a peace of mind, a peace of kind of the going away, because what can you do? There's not much you can do but to accept the withering away of humanity. And then the animals will take over. I guess they just kind of live their lives. um the next thing I kind of wanted to go into is Homer Adam. Homer Adam, this lone man of who is the only sterile, or the only male who's able to reproduce. He's a married man. He has a daughter. That's how everyone finds out. And Homer is this tall, skinny, freckled, pale, red-haired, uh, insecure man. And when it comes to, if things were normal, meaning that men weren't sterile, no one would give a hoot about Homer. They wouldn't like how he looks. Women would not be attracted to him. They probably wouldn't even give him a second look. But because he is the only man, now he becomes this and this isn't what I'm about to say, it wasn't the major, like a major part of the book, but it was touched on. Homer then becomes this sort of like sex symbol, and it's because biology takes over. Women aren't able to reproduce um, with their husbands, with their chosen mate. Their only hope of having children ever is this man. So now biology is kind of taking over, where they wouldn't find Homer attractive under normal circumstances. Now he, you know, now he is like, every woman is like, I want to have a baby with him. It it almost makes you think, like would I be attracted to someone who I normally wouldn't find attractive, because this is the only um mate viable for reproduction? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think I would. But also, I'm not put in this position, so my mind may change. My thought may change on that. I guess I don't think it would. I love my husband, faithful to him. I wouldn't want anyone else to be the father of my child. Even if we were not able to have children, thankfully we are. We have a son. But even if we weren't, I would not have the desire to go anywhere else, to have a baby, to physically have a baby. Um, with that being said, that is not the take on in this book. Now, beyond how he looks and how he behaves and what his personality is like, I kind of got the idea of, like, Homer Adam is an odd name. What does it mean? Obviously, Adam means earth. Um, and Adam, if you are a believer of the Christian faith, you, which I am, we know Adam to be the first man ever created, the first man to basically start off humanity. So his last name being Adam, and now him being the only man who is able to have a baby, he essentially would be the restart of the human race. So if we go all the way back to the biblical Adam and think how that genealogy would affect the rest of us humans living today, it kind of takes that approach, in the sense that this Adam was now has to repopulate the whole world. And I didn't want to fully get into the thought of what that would look like. We just have a bunch of tall skinny gingers running around, which is fine. But to have an unathletic, tall, gangly, uh insecure man to kind of push forward humanity, that's kind of a question and a thought within itself. Now, going to his first name, Homer, I looked that up as well. And Homer, one of the meanings of the name Homer is hostage. And that is exactly what Homer Adam became. Once the government, the American government, and the rest of the world found out that he is the only male who is able to reproduce, he's basically taken hostage. His privacy is no longer. He is now a what do you call it? He is now like not a product of the government, but like government property. He is now government property. It is his job to repopulate the earth, starting with America. Um, but he loses all autonomy. Things are chosen for him, of what's going to happen to him. He no longer has a voice, which he kind of is ushered along, and he allows it to happen because he's not used to speaking up for himself, because he is insecure, because he is this kind of meek and mild man. And once he gets taken, he has, like I said, he has a wife, he has a daughter he is taken away from him. He's from New York. He's sent to Washington and put up in this hotel, and he's meeting these people, these delegates, and he's distraught. And so Steve Smith becomes his handler, basically, in a way, to make sure that he's happy, to make sure that he's fit for artificial insemination, which at that point is something new. It was being worked on. It was going from a theory to being something that was actually happening, but it wasn't fully tested yet. But now we're thrust into this scientific world of now we have to try AI. Now we have to try artificial insemination. So he's basically an experiment at this point. Now, I don't want to give away the story. In my previous videos, I've kind of gone through the story and given away what happened. So I don't fully want to do that here. So I'm trying to keep some stuff that goes on in the book under wraps. So I will talk about the writing style now of Pat Frank. And I want to say that I guess if you're big into cancel culture, I'm not one of those people. I think cancel culture is kind of odd. If you like a person, you like them. If you don't, you don't. That's where it ends for me. But Pat Frank, his writing is a sign of the times. Let me be clear. I found his writing style funny. There are things in here that I couldn't help but laugh at. The way he portrays women sometimes is just that 1946 way of portraying women. The way he talks about their bodies, the way he talks about the way how they look. I found it funny. All I could do was laugh. But for instance, the he describes this woman, and he goes, if it not have been for that medium tank of a woman, the world would not have known for weeks or perhaps several months what had happened to it. And when I read that, a medium tank of a woman, that made me laugh. That made me chuckle out loud. Um, so when I think of, like, in today's mind of how this book would be received, probably not the best. Steve Smith, he has a secretary who he describes basically as ugly. He doesn't call her ugly, but the way he describes her is not in the best light. She has these glasses that magnify her eyes to where they just look huge, and she's kind of just sometimes a wreck of a woman. She's a great secretary, but I mean, like, emotionally, sometimes she can't really hold on, which is once again a sign of the times of sometimes how women were portrayed. She does a good job as his secretary, and to show his appreciation, hello. Hi. Hello. Little friend here. My dog. This is Thorin. But to show his appreciation of Jane's job well done, he gives her a kiss on the cheek and tells her, I love you. And stuff like this was just normal, I guess, but there is no way that Steve Smith would not have gotten a lawsuit on his hands if this were happening today. Kind of Pat Frank's kind of idea of women in this book. Now, I don't know if this is his true idea or if this is just what he kind of went with for the story, but he kind of has this idea that all women want to have babies, and that's all they want to do. Yes, they strive to more things. I mean, he has women in this book who are senators and who are women in high positions, doctors and things like that. But for him, the bottom line for women is always and will forever be wanting to have babies, wanting to reproduce. And that's why Homer becomes such a big deal. Not only because he is meant to repopulate the human race, but it's these women, they are willing to have babies with Homer Adam, and then just tell their husbands, accept it. This is your son. You can name him after you, whatever. So I thought that concept was interesting, and his idea of men like wanting to have babies was, um, in my opinion, kind of off. Like he almost had this idea that oh yeah, well these men, our wives want to have babies, so whatever, let Homer impregnate them. Whereas I can't imagine that that would be just a general acceptance. And we see even in this book with Steve Smith that it's not. His wife Marge um, suggests and says a couple of times that she would love to have a Homer baby. And Steve Smith is like, over my dead body, you're not getting pregnant by this man. And then you want me to raise his child as my own. And I think the double hit to what his wife Marge says, what Steve Smith's wife Marge says, is the fact that Steve Smith is now friends with Homer. He's known as his handler to the general public, but Steve and Homer have created a friendship. They've created a bond, and to think that his wife, goes so far as to say like, yeah, I want Homer's baby, and we can name him Steve Smith Jr. I I couldn't imagine, and I even posed that question to my husband, obviously not in a serious sense. When I read these books, I talk to my husband about them and my ideas and thoughts, and I was just like, what would you do? Like, how would you be able to wrap your head around that? And he was like, absolutely not. And that's because, for my husband, I'm not speaking for every man out there, but you know it may not be as prevalent with young boys as it is with girls, growing up and saying I want to have babies and be a mom and stuff. But I think that there are many young boys out there, and growing into men, who desire to have their own children, who have a hope of being married and having kids and being excited about having kids. So the idea that I would come to him and be like, hey, I'm getting pregnant by this man. You're still going to be my husband. You're still going to be this baby's father. And by the way, let's name him after you. Let's name him Keegan Love Jr. And also, by the way, this man that I'm talking of is your friend. My husband was like, absolutely not. You are outside of your mind if you were ever to think that would happen. And I agreed with him. I was like, you're right. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. But I just had to pose this question because the way Pat Frank writes it is almost like these men are so accepting of the way this will go down, and get with the status quo because this is life now. And that, in a real world sense, there's no way. I can't imagine that most to all men would be okay with that. Now, the cause and effect of this story, so the cause of everything happening, the explosion in Mississippi, was by a group of scientists. And it's a science fiction book, but even in the real world, it's always scientists, right? They some of them play God. Some of them, you know, do things that, as a regular run of the mill person, I just cannot wrap my head around. You have the idea of a mad scientist, and, in my opinion, some of them are that. They could justify their experimentation and things however they want, but I think some things just go way too far. Um, and I think today in 2025, we're kind of living in that mad scientist, kind of weird Frankenstein experimentation um, age. And I'm not just saying in 2025. I mean, we know historically that there have been, some experiments on human beings that just are completely unethical, and just it's hard to wrap your head around. And in this story, what ends up happening, this is one of them. I don't want to say too much, but I feel like I'm saying too little. Um, these scientists, um, when it comes to the repopulation of the human race, decide to play God, and they do what they will with Homer. And one of those scientists actually happens to be a woman by the name of Kathy Rydell, and she comes on to Homer. And Kathy Rydell is a smart woman. Her father is a scientist. She herself is a scientist. She has like I think a PhD, and she's into archaeology. I mean, she's really smart, but she also has this for lack of a better term, a Kim Kardashian personality. Like, she's famous because she's a pretty face with a a banging body. Um, she she's an attractive woman, and she comes on to Homer. She is one of those scientists, and she comes on to Homer to the point where she seduces him. They have relations. Homer cheats on his wife. He says now that he loves this woman Kathy after knowing her for only a short amount of time, and Homer is so wrapped up in this. I mean, he never, his wife, Mary Ellen is her name, was the only woman he's ever been with. She is the only woman that he has ever opened himself up to, because growing up he was bullied, he was, mocked, and he was made fun of by both girls and boys. So he didn't really have much experience with women outside of his wife. Along comes Kathy Rydell, Miss Kim Kardashian esque herself, and seduces him. He falls in love with her, so he says, and he, decides to run away with her. This whole refertilization, repopulation thing becomes too much for Homer. He doesn't even want to do it. So he runs off with Kathy. He leaves a note for Steve saying, hey, I'm gone. Me and Kathy are running away. Mary Ellen and the baby, they'll be fine. They have enough money from the government to last them, for however long, to have their needs met. And he is gone. Come to find out, which he does, that Kathy Rydell was using him. And I feel like obviously that's one of the things that you saw coming. It's like, there's no way this broad is into him. It's like when an ugly athlete, I mean just dead ugly, everyone could see that this individual is ugly, um, marries a very, very attractive woman. She has put herself out there multiple times to multiple men on multiple platforms, whatever, whatever. Yet she swears up and down she loves this man. She ends up getting pregnant by him, securing the bag, and then lo and behold, they get divorced. She, their homes are split, and she now has alimony for however insane, exorbitant amount of money of $55,000 a month to support one child. I don't know. It's insane. But when it happens, the general public goes, well, obviously, I can't believe that stupid idiot didn't see it. That is Homer Adam. His only saving grace is that his wife, Mary Ellen, loves him so much. That is her person. She cannot see her life without him. And she knows that Homer is under an insane amount of pressure. And this is a mistake he has made due to the situation that he has been forced into. And, more power to her. You can't just cheat on me and leave me for this woman. And then when that woman, um, says like, hey, it was all a ruse. Now you want me back. It couldn't be me, but I'm happy that Mary Ellen and Homer are happy, to each their own, whatever, whatever. Once again, Thorne, could not be me. You leave your wife and your child and your dog and make off with some Kim Kardashian, and then she breaks your heart and you come back to me. It couldn't be me. Whatever. But cheers to Mary Ellen and Homer. Anyway, I hope I gave enough information. This is a new style for me of trying not to give everything away story wise. So I hope this was enough to intrigue you and to actually pick up the book. This book, on a personal level, when it comes to dissecting the way this story happened, it had me up and down and happy and frustrated and angry. It it was written so well, and the premise of the book is thought provoking. Like, you read this book, how could you not think of, yeah, how would that repopulation happen? How would you distribute Homer Adam to not only the U.S. but to the rest of the world? And that was something that had to be answered in the book as well. You have this this nuclear age, this age of communism, the rise of communism. I mean, everyone's seeing it, the Red Scare, and you have the U.S. having this man, right? And you have them talking about, how are we going to distribute, you know, Homer Adams biology? Who will it go to? You have, will it go to the elites? Will it go to the rich people? Will it go to the smart people? Will it go to the minorities? And let's be clear, it ain't going to the minorities. Um, the the black population is like, if you don't give them to us, we'll take that as you trying to cancel us out. The Catholics and the Jews, that was a big deal. The Catholics and the Jews were like, we already know you ain't giving it to us, so you're trying to eradicate the Jews, you're trying to eradicate the Catholics, which would bring up a whole other question, because if that were to be the case, if they were to try and eradicate the Jews on purpose, the blacks on purpose, the Catholic, whatever. Now are we talking like, is that any better than on a moral level? What you know a genocide, would that be considered a genocide? Maybe less violent, maybe less bloody, but still very deliberate in its intention. And then beyond distributing Homer in the United States, now we're talking about other countries, because it's the age of communism, because it's the Red Scare. We have the US government talking about, we don't want to give it to Russia, because that's just, they're going to have babies and breed more communists. And then the Russians are like, well, don't give it to the Polish people, don't give it to the Hungarians, don't give it to so you see this kind of racial hierarchy and racism coming into play when it comes to um, repopulating the earth. And that was so because that's exactly, you can't convince me that that's not exactly how it would go. um you choose a handful of women to impregnate, and the ones that didn't get chosen are going to revolt. Oh, you did this because I mean, it would create so many issues, which, shoot, might start a wars itself. I don't know, but I can only imagine, probably. And now you're really talking about a nuclear war, because I can't imagine it not leading to that. Like, missiles pointed. If you do not give him up so we can repopulate our country, we will blow you to shreds, and you will be no longer. You will be gone before your generations even have a chance to die out. I mean, this book makes you think, and not fun thoughts, but definitely thoughts that are in depth and that you can have a real conversation about. Yes, it's theoretical, but I mean, nukes pointed. It I mean, here we are. I don't. Pat Frank did a great job with this book, and that is my review. 5 out of 5 stars. I had fun with this read. I had fun thinking about the repercussions of something like this happening. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, the whole world thrown into chaos, Thorn. It Oh yeah, that would make me just want to go and get a piece of land immediately. I mean, we are gone. We are living the best life we can while we have it. Well, don't roll your eyes at me. This is just theoretical. We hope. Anyway, this completes my review of Mr. Adam. Like I said, 5 out of 5 stars. Pat Frank, you did an amazing book. I will say this, if you are someone who gets hung up on the way things are written during a certain time because you don't agree with it now, maybe you won't want to pick up this book. If you are, an ultra feminist and you get offended fairly easily, don't pick it up. But if you are somebody who just likes to explore and read for the fun of it, read for the joy of it, read to understand the thoughts of people that came before you, this book was good. It made me laugh. It made me chuckle. It filled me with dread. It filled me with frustration and anger and sadness and hope. Because there is hope at the end of this book. I do want to make that clear. And I cannot wait to to pick up another book of Pat Frank's. It will probably be Alas Babylon, which was mentioned in his little mini biography here on the bottom, because this book was so good. I can't imagine his other books not being good. I mean, if you want a thought piece, pick it up. And I hope someone else picks it up so that you guys can talk about it. My husband actually is excited to read this book because I told him, I was like, this one kind of has me in a loop. This one's got some theoretical happenings that I feel like might actually happen. Like, what are we gonna do? So it is a fun read. It is something that is thought provoking. It is something that you can discuss if you are into reading for that aspect. Pat Frank, you did a wonderful job. I have basically just about covered every thought that I had while reading this book. I truly hope that you enjoyed my review. I know it's different from the videos that I've done previously, but if you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe to help me grow my channel. I am trying to, become that book reviewer that people look forward to watching, where they will pour themselves a drink, grab their book, and start whining about books. Now, join me next time at the in the next couple of weeks, where I will do my crib review. That is my quick reviews of the in between, what I read this month. That is not a long form review of one single book, but is a video of mini reviews of multiple books. That will be at the end of this month. I hope that you join me so that we can do some more whining about books. Thank you so much.